Mira Business FM, your daily guide to the markets, money, and more.
Mira Business FM, good morning. This is the Morning Drive. It's time to talk property now. Mario Volpi is Senior Manager at Eva Real Estate. He is also a newspaper columnist, he's a podcaster, and he's an all-round property bloke.
Good morning.
What's that like?
Bloke. That's very British, isn't it?
It's very British. He's an all-round property. I nearly said geek, and then I thought, you're not.
Well,
geeky.
I thought you were going to go with good egg, perhaps.
That's a good one. Yeah, okay, I'll save that for next week. That's in the bank. Mario, good to see you. Good morning.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very good, yeah. Managed to not watch any football, so I'm not so bleary-eyed this morning.
Yeah, you look kind of quite bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, actually, I have to say. Normally you're here and it's, Chelsea have either been victorious or you're in an extremely bad mood.
Yeah, that's the tail of the tape.
Yeah, it is kind
But
of.
we're off-season, so it's okay.
So let's look at what we're going to speak about today. We have a new initiative from the DLD, Dubai Land Department. It's a new Flexi Rents initiative. That's kind of the main story. It dropped yesterday. We'll talk about that in a moment. We'll be talking about mega projects, Arada making their London debut, and then Dubai real estate rebounding. Here's the headline: as peace prospects return, so does buyer confidence. We'll have a look at delve into that story as well, and this is kind of your whole existence in this world. How many years in real estate?
42 years in October.
Yeah, without really any days off.
Correct. Well, no sick days off.
No sick days off.
I'm allowed a holiday. You make it sound like a prison sentence.
No,
without any days off.
I'm just trying to over-egg the pudding. That's how it works. But you know a few things about being a real estate broker, being an estate agent, as it's known from where you come from. So how to be a great real estate broker, the attitude you need, the attributes you need, skills that you need, all of those things. There are many things to discuss there, aren't there?
Is that the question? Do we launch into it now?
No, we'll come to that in a little while. Main story this morning is this new Flexi Rents initiative. Yeah. We learned about it yesterday. Everybody's talking about it. And it's a new program. It's designed to ease the financial burden on tenants by offering more accessible and manageable rental payment options. The details, the mechanics in a second. But overall, what did you think?
Well, any initiatives like this, I definitely welcome, because it just makes life a lot easier for the tenant. Of course, when you talk about tenants, you've also got to talk about landlords as well. Yes. So this obviously is very weighted towards the benefit for the tenant. And I wondered whether it came about because of what Abu Dhabi had done just a couple of weeks ago, with the sort of rent freeze, helping their tenants there. So there was a few questions or some articles wondering what Dubai would do to follow suit, and that's just it. I've mentioned here on this program and on the podcast and things, Dubai is constantly looking, and in fact the UAE is constantly looking at ways of improving the lives of the residents. And if we're talking about real estate and rents, that's very, very important, because the majority, I guess, of the people here, or certainly the people that first come here, live in rented accommodation. So it's a massive story. It's bringing into line. It's bringing sort of the system into line a lot more to what perhaps we are like in the UK, in Europe, etc. It's interesting that they're talking about more flexible payment terms, but the details, whilst are there, they're always a little bit sporadic, because nobody really knows how it actually is going to work. There's only 12 companies apparently that have been invited or are participating in it. Yeah. And I think we talked off air. It's about the adoption, isn't it? Because the check systems here are super ingrained in the minds of the parties, especially the landlords. There are trust issues, or there's definitely trust that has to be involved, and that's why often landlords prefer the one check system, because then they don't have to worry about referencing. So if now more flexible terms are being put into play, does that mean that referencing is going to be coming in soon? I mean, that's a question perhaps for the future. If you're able to pay, via a check system, sorry, not check, sorry, a credit card system, does that mean again that the landlord is accepting a one payment from the credit card, or is it 12 installments in the credit card? For me, there are still a lot of questions that need to be answered. But broadly speaking, I definitely welcome it. I'm not going to say it's about time, but it's about time, if you know what I'm trying to say there.
I do, yeah.
We don't get, for those lucky enough to have a salary, you don't get paid a year in advance. So why should we have to pay our rent a year in advance? And the other thing that was also interesting, that when you do have to, or when you try to negotiate with a landlord, for example, for a 12 check payment, often the rent goes up, which, it's a kind of a quid pro quo. I suppose you think, well, I'm wanting him to be flexible, so I guess I have to pay for it. But this initiative, it would appear that the rent doesn't go up, whether it's a one check payment or whether it's a 12 check payment.
Yeah, so it seems. I mean, it introduces options, okay, for monthly payments, quarterly, semi-annual installments, extended payment plans up to 12 months. So more flexibility, it would seem. Depending on the landlord, tenants may also benefit from grace periods, revised payment schedules, and in some cases, the waiver of rental increases or admin fees related to delayed check payments as well.
Now, the waiver of increments, I think, is a very interesting one, because
I know
that kind of makes me wonder, well, what's the smart rental index about then? Because that's a mechanism that is fair, and is fair for everybody. If rents are up, then obviously a tenant should pay more money, much as we don't like to, kind of thing, but it is what it is. And if rents come down, then obviously we're asking the landlord to be flexible. But and that's why I think we need to really dig deep, or allow time to see how this pans out. Because if it's saying that some rental increments don't come into play, well, when will the landlord obviously then get a little bit more money if the market goes up, for example? So as I say, it's great for a tenant, but there are some question marks, I guess.
We need a bit more clarity on that, don't we? So you can still pay by check. Obviously, it introduces credit card, debit cards. It doesn't say anything about direct debits here. But it does kind of widen the payment pool, if you like, which I think is important. Things have moved on, obviously, but there's also there's kind of a growing momentum, I think, of us wanting to see the end of this. It's pretty dated check system. I get that it's there, but we're starting to see other private companies come in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not so much the payment via a check.
No,
which. You're right, it is a little bit dated, and it should be done either via direct debit, but the payment kind of remains the same, rather than just writing on a piece of paper, or it's coming electronically through your bank.
I just get very fed up signing that many checks.
Well, yeah, okay.
Because I always make a mistake.
I get that, and we talked about that off air, and yes, people do make mistakes from a repetitive point of view. But for me, it's the ability to pay your rent monthly. That should be fundamental in all of this.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I've been here now coming up to 18 years, and we're still talking about it. It should have changed. Like I said, we don't get paid, once a year. You get paid monthly, and this is a monthly expense, probably the biggest expense in the majority of cases. And that flexibility, whilst we're all lauding it, it should really be a given. But like I said, it's the adoption of, generally speaking, the main landlords out there who are ingrained in pursuit of their one check payment. And I can say that I've had many a discussion with landlords where, and I'm not even talking about 12 checks, but multiple checks, where they've been insistent on a one check payment, purely and simply because they say, well, I don't know what would happen to the tenant. And I said, well, nobody does. But I guess that's also why insurance was invented. So if a tenant were to lose his job, and obviously he is paying monthly, how, what does the landlord have to do? Does he then have to suffer because something's happened to the tenant? On the face of it, yes, but if he has insurance, that should cover it. So I just think this one check payment is too much of a burden on individuals when, let's face it, the price of everything has gone up in the years that we've all been here.
Yeah.
Not least, obviously, petrol, as we know, and therefore, people are having to consolidate and budget a lot more than they used to. So they have to be careful.
They do. 12 partners at the moment, 12 major real estate companies, Wasl Properties, DR, Dubai World Real Estate. There are a good number more there. The DLD has plans to expand the initiative across the wider Dubai real estate market in phases in the coming months. So this is first step.
It is, but again, I've got questions. Were they invited by the land department, or was it voluntary? It's a good mixture of sort of developer management companies and real estate companies.
Yep.
I would imagine the real estate companies must have their own portfolios, because if I'm managing your portfolio, for example, and I'm part of the scheme, well, you're the one that has to accept the 12 check payment. It's not me.
Yep.
So again, they must have their own stock, for want of a better word, or as part of managing your stock, because I'm part of the scheme, you already have to sign up to that. But there must be checks and balances here from the point of view of these landlords, because unfortunately, yes, checks do bounce. Payments are sometimes missed. So what happens there? It's all well and good saying, be more flexible for the tenant. But I do have this question mark over landlord, for landlords as well, sort of in their corner. Who's fighting for them a little bit?
True, but there is inbuilt security here, isn't there? In that, to rent somewhere to live, you need to have the approval of RERA. You need the stamp. They know who you are. There is an Emirates ID requirement. They know where you are. You have paid checks up front, or you have made a commitment to pay because you've taken your annual contract. So I suppose, that side, in theory, should be enough. It's just interesting that it comes at this time, at where we are now, in kind of the economic cycle, I suppose. As things have been uncertain, it gives you a little bit more certainty,
more clarity,
going
and I think
forward,
that's exactly what the government wants to do. They want to, unmuddy the waters a little bit, and if renting is your game, or if that's what you're needing to do, then this is another, dare I say, major step forward towards perhaps either greater adoption of this and therefore more clarity towards the whole sector, not just sort of headlines that we're talking about today. I definitely welcome it. I think if you can make a system simpler, more straightforward, easier for people, again, it just greases the whole and lubricates the whole ecosystem, really, removing these kind of barriers, which for some people is huge. Because if you don't come to the UAE with a huge sum of money to pay up front because your landlord insists on one check, then you've got a problem. I mean, because you've got to live somewhere.
It's tough when you start. I mean, I think back to when I came here, and I was lucky. I got the first place I got. I think it was a 3-check deal, but it was still at that point. I just moved. It's a hard thing to do, and you're also, not only is it a financial commitment, and that's a big deal, but it's the commitment that you're making. That you have moved, and it's like, I've got to put this money down. Now I'm committed to staying. There's that as well.
Yeah, and of course, depending on the kind of job you do, and when I look back towards my sort of 18 years here, there were many downs, and of course there were many ups as well. But in a downward period of your career or your job, for me, obviously, it's based on the economy. I mean, when I first came here, 3 months later, the market crashed because of the world financial crash. I mean, nobody could necessarily have predicted that. I certainly didn't. But I'd moved my whole family here. My whole life was here. What do I do now? You just got to get on with it.
Yeah.
And we did. And when I look back and think about what we had to do in order just to survive, I mean, that's why my book will be amazing when one day I might write it, because there's going to be snippets in there that will be some eye-openers. But the point is that we live in this world where we have to adapt, but I'm very grateful that the sort of government that we have here is so forward-thinking. It literally, meets up every now and then just to say, how can we make life easier for the residents, for the expats, for the locals, for everybody. I mean, there was a saying recently, I think, during the conflict, that we're all Emirati, and I thought that was a really nice way of trying to just bring us all together, no matter what nationalities we are. And if making the payments easier or less burdenful, if that's a word, less troublesome in terms of paying in installments for your rent, then that's great. As long as, obviously, like I say, the landlords are also protected, because without landlords, we don't have anything to rent.
Yeah,
so they're the ones that got to buy these properties in the first place and decide to rent them out. Yeah,
it's very easy to demonise the landlord, isn't it?
Look, it is, and going back to the 12 check payment, I got to the stage with my landlord that, right at the beginning, there is no trust. You don't know me, I don't know you. And so, of course, that's why a landlord is going to say, well, look, I really would prefer, a one check payment, because then I don't have to trouble you. It's fine. You've paid for it, enjoy it, do what you like, etc. Now, if you've got the ability to do that, fantastic. But with myself, it got to the stage that at renewal, I was telling the landlord what I was going to do. Not, is it, can I pay in 12 checks? Can I this? Can I that? I would furnish my landlord with facts. What are the prices today? First of all, you've got to remember that vacant property market price is different to renewal price. There is always that difference. In fact, vacant property price is a lot higher than renewal price, hence why the rental index, the smart rental index, is in play. But landlords will actually try their luck to say, well, the market price is this. So tenants need to know the law there in that respect. But so I would hit him with what's available, what the rental index actually states. I have access to a lot more data, perhaps, than the average tenant in the street, which obviously was at my advantage. But it helped the landlord to understand, where I'm coming from. But because that trust was there, and again, that trust is built up over years, so I was lucky. Yeah. It's easier to say I had an amazing business relationship with that landlord. Because I'd like to think I was a model tenant. I often improved the value of their property literally just by furnishing it and keeping it nice, etc. But nobody knows any of that at the beginning. No. You're just, well, how do I know you're going to do that? How do I know this? And that is why they come together at these two completely different opposing sets of criteria, a bit like negotiating, this conflict. So we talk about dancing with your landlord every year, the rental dance every year. So we do have these mechanisms in place, and hopefully this one now will, as I say, create this platform where the landlord knows what he's allowed to do, and perhaps if referencing comes in or previous landlord's reference or something like that, makes the decision a little bit easier to accept that 12 check payment or 12 payments, as it were, either through direct debit or credit card or however, then, as I say, I welcomed it. So I wasn't surprised in some respects, because Abu Dhabi had done something, and I think the pressure was on Dubai to at least come up with something. I wasn't sure that necessarily they had the appetite to do something like this. And And with the smart rental index in place, that is already a good platform to protect the tenant from, dare I say, these rogue landlords, because some of them are, but I want to say a lot of them are also very, very good.
I think so. We just need to learn the mechanism for, single unit landlords. Can they join at some point?
Rather than institutional landlords and things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting, I think, and just how much traction that this gets, I suppose. But we've got there's so much more data around now. You're talking about being armed with data there, and you did have access to more stuff, but there is plenty around now. So that relationship with your landlord, arming yourself with facts when you go back to renew. If you do your homework, you can present a pretty good case.
You can, but the data I'm referring to is real closed deals data. So a landlord and a tenant could go on to, for example, Bayut does something known as true estimate.
Yep.
And they will give you a guide as to what your property is worth. But a lot of that info, whilst they also use, I would imagine they also use, sale prices, they do use also asking prices. And we all know that asking prices and sale prices are two totally different things. So those figures could potentially be a little bit skewed. But whereas I've got access to real live data, sizes, door numbers, and what they either sold for or rented for, and that's much more important, because what it went for is totally different to what it was requesting to go for. Especially if offers are coming in, and in a marketplace where I suppose both tenants and indeed buyers think that they're driving the bus at the moment, then for sure the two figures will be a big gap, asking price and agreeing price.
Okay, well, that's our first story today anyway, and it's a good piece of news.
It's going to run and run, obviously, and we need more really information,
yeah. Yeah, DLD launching a new Flexi Rents initiative. What's the book going to be called, by the way?
Oh, well, I haven't...
Any thoughts on that?
No, but there is a new verb now, Dubai it. You've heard of that?
Yeah, I've seen that,
so, I don't know. It'll have to be something like that. I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. But I have thought about writing this book for a long, long time, because episodes in my Dubai life here, especially as a real estate agent, you go, really? Did that really happen? Did that actually... That would never have happened in the UK. That would never have happened in Italy or whatever. Anecdotes, funny stories, and just outrageous periods of my life.
We should do a show on that. Get you come up with just 3, obviously, safe for work anecdotes or something, because there are going to be many. Yeah. Dubai, it sounds like it's going to be more like a confessions of a real estate agent. That's an entirely different thing.
Well, I don't think I've got anything necessarily to confess about, but because I always try to live, especially the professional life, in the proper way, and ironically, only yesterday I spoke to one of my agents she came up to me with a scenario, and agents are obviously so desperate to do deals that sometimes they'll just get on and just do them, and I said to this lady, I said, no, learn to say no. If the deal isn't good for everyone, then it's not a deal. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that thinks that, or maybe lots of agents thinks like that. But certainly the reputation is no. If there's a deal to be done, let's get on and do it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For me, no. And it's a no, it's a hard no. Why? Because I want that person to speak highly of either the company or the individual or myself and recommend us. It's a highly competitive marketplace. And this perhaps leads us on to a bit like maybe the second half of the program, where we're talking about, good practices about real estate agents and what have you. But for sure, a deal isn't always a good deal, because you've got to look at everybody's perspective on it. There is this word win-win. I always say lose-lose, but that win-win scenario has to be there for everyone. Otherwise, you're just screwing someone over.
Very often. I mean, look, the reason I wanted to talk to you about how to be a great broker is because there's a story in, I think it was Khalees Times this week. Dubai property brokers survive or get filtered out was the headline, right? So we're in a testing period. There's no doubt about that. It's tough at the moment, particularly tough at the moment. So competition's there. Buyer sentiment is certainly softer. Clients are more selective, and we're coming out of a very uncertain time. So that's a recipe for, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Lots of agents and agencies entered the sector during the boom. So, it was much easier.
Yeah, I mean, I've said before that if 4 or 5 years in any industry, especially here in the UAE, is a long time.
Yeah.
And when I sort of first joined Eva, one of the questions I said, put your hands up if you've been here a year, 2 years, 3 years, and I went up to sort of 5 years, because then 5 years would have been 2021 as we were coming out of COVID, and therefore as we were getting better in the marketplace, etc.
Yeah.
And there was literally there was around 90 agents there. And I can remember only 2 or 3 hands going up that were there longer than that period. So it dawned on me that the individuals in front of me only knew one market, and that was a bull market.
Yep.
That was a market that was going up. And like you said, it was easier. So I think everybody wanted a slice of the Dubai dream or the UAE dream. It was then just which product, which project, which payment plan, and sort of putting people in the right investments, perhaps. But the mentality of buyers in a rising market is totally different to those in a market, like you say, where perhaps there's pause, there's confusion, there's uncertainty, and the willingness is always there, or should I say the ability to buy is always there, but sometimes the willingness isn't. And one of the things I always say to all my agents is make sure that a buyer has 3 components to it, and that's they have to be ready, they have to be willing, and they have to be able. If they're 2 of the 3, that's fine, but they won't buy. They have to be all 3 to be able to go ahead and buy a property. They could be, I'm ready to buy, yeah, I'm willing to buy, but I'm not able because I've got a house to sell in London before I can buy.
Sure.
Or, I'm ready, I'm able, but I'm not willing because at the moment, I'm not sure where the market is going. So all of these things I explain to them. And when you try to analyze or reflect on who your buyer is, always try to get those questions answered without saying, well, hello, are you ready? Are you willing? Are you able? Of course, that's not how we do it. Because the buyer probably think, what the hell you're talking about. But in a roundabout way, ask the right questions and qualify the buyer so that you know where the buyer is in the journey of the purchase as well. Because if a buyer is impulsive, then yes, if you show them the right thing, they might go for it. But generally speaking, they'll see something, they like it, and then they'll start weighing things up. That doesn't make them a bad buyer. It just means that they're doing their due diligence, and it needs time. And of course, I always say that real estate brokers work on a completely different time frame to buyers. You do a viewing, you say, well, do you want it? Are you going to go ahead with it or what? But let me think. Well, what's there to think about? You want 3 bedrooms? I'll show you 3 bedrooms. So they're on completely different levels. So that agent who started in 2021, 2022, clearly has a completely different mindset to the agent that had to deal with in 2008-9 when the bottom of the market completely collapsed. I mean, I remember we couldn't give things away in 2009, early 2009, and people were in denial. I remember, I think I've mentioned it once before, this woman bought a couple of floors in Abu Dhabi and wouldn't drop the price because she said, I couldn't possibly lose any money. Why did I buy it in the first place? I'm here to make money. And that mindset of everything always going up and up and up has now caused problems because we have individuals who bought a property, especially off plan, to flip it, to sell it on, because the agent had promised that within 6 months the prices would have moved. And of course, that was the case. So right now, we need a team of advisors. We need a team of consultants. We don't need a team of salespeople, because buyers will buy, and there are plenty of them out there. But we need to ensure that the person is able to give validation to the client, because ultimately the client also knows a lot. But that's the one thing I found out here. You can be a consultant, and as long as you've got either the years behind you or the knowledge, and you come across that way, people will then realize that you're the person to at least listen to. But they know what they want. Half the time they've done their homework. They know what they want.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the broker's role hasn't necessarily changed, but there has been a shift, I think, and this is always driven by circumstances and experience. So you want somebody who's going to give you genuine advice. You need to be a good agent. You need data. You need negotiation skills. You need to understand the history, the pricing history. You need rental market knowledge. You need to be a client psychologist as well. And if you can get all of that in the one package, but it's not just everything is going great guns, I'm going to sell no matter what. You need all of that in the package now, more than ever, I think.
Yeah, I always say knowledge is power, and information is the key. I mean, I've got agents who I'll say, well, you know, I'll ask questions. They want some advice from me.
Yeah.
But before I give any advice, I need to know the whole package, and I start asking questions about the buyer, and they haven't got a clue. They haven't asked.
Yeah.
Now that could be a cultural thing. It could be that they're scared to ask. I'm not going to say difficult questions, but certainly financial questions, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's an age there, because a lot of these brokers are young men and women.
Yeah, sure.
And it could be that the client is an older person, especially now. Maybe not so much 18 years ago, where everyone's sort of young, but now there's a lot more younger people. Older people around. I don't mean because the age of 18 years has passed.
Rose-tinted spectacles. I know.
No, it's just now you've got the grey dirham, you've got retirement plans, you've got all sorts of things that weren't around. I mean, when I first came to Dubai, if you weren't allowed to work beyond 60, and I was, I mean, how old was I? Sort of in my sort of 40s, as it were, early 40s, and I was thinking, my goodness, you know, that's okay. I won't be working then.
It seems like forever.
You know, 18 years later, it's been a stretch.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. Do you think that what we might see now, because things are tougher, I mean, unfortunately, when things are tough, not everybody survives.
No.
It's how it is, and you have to face that. But do you think for buyers and sellers, in a way that it could be a positive thing? It's because it's a shake-up, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And again, I've said before, in a weird way, this conflict put, let's just say, let's describe them as rampaging. You're on a cart with rampaging horses galloping.
Yeah.
And all this has done is it's slowed down these horses running. You know, they're not galloping anymore.
Yeah.
They are steadily trotting, if I can perhaps put it that way. And that's just it. The market is still going forward. There are still deals to be done. But the headlines are that prices are down, you know, sort of 40, 50% from their peaks in terms of volume. And that's normal, because in confusion, buyers take a step back.
Yeah.
They never disappeared. They never went away. And this is something that we need to sort of touch upon. Dubai did an amazing job. The UAE did an amazing job in selling itself on the world stage. And I guess, you know, that galloping marketplace was something that couldn't be sustained forever. So in a weird way, this conflict has improved the market. It's given buyers now some breathing space Because let's not forget, when you went to buy an off-plan property, I mean, it was a lottery.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case you just went in and had your time to look at the floor plans and decide. You had to. I mean, I knew people who hadn't even seen anything. Just get me anything. Just buy me a 1-bedroom.
Yeah.
I don't care what floor it's on. Or actually, we were saying that more than they were saying. They were saying, well, we want this floor, we want that floor. So actually, if we get you one, it'll be anywhere. Could be a low floor, could be a corner unit, could be a top floor, but whatever. If I get you one, I've done my job. Because in getting one is such a difficult thing.
Yeah.
So, and that isn't real. To me, that's not real estate. That's just like a lottery, like I say. So now the buyer can go into the developer's office. There's a lot more stock. They can take their time. Units that perhaps weren't there before have now surfaced. The prices are still the same. I mean, generally speaking, they're still the same. But the value add has come in there. And I think that's been the tail of the tape for Dubai or the UAE. We're not used to dropping prices, but we add value. You go to a hotel, they don't sort of necessarily give you a discount, but they'll upgrade you.
Sure.
They'll offer you a spa treatment, excuse me, or something else. Airline tickets, you might get upgraded. So the same is true with real estate. And so with the developers, what they've done is they've not. Some of them have. I'm not going to say they haven't across the board. Some of them have dropped down a little bit, maybe the smaller ones. But in the main, the prices have remained the same, but the value add has been there in the form of better payment plans, in the form of benefits, DLD waivers or other fee waivers, etc., more post-handover payment plans, these kind of things. So the person then starts to think, oh, okay, well, actually, I don't need to put so much money down. And as long as they're buying for the right reason, that's why you're seeing even some of these payment plans where it's back-end loaded, 25/75, for example.
Yeah.
All I've got to worry about is 25% of the value.
That's right.
That's what they're thinking. Well, actually, no. You've got to pay the other 75 as well. But of course,
you never think about that.
No, well, you kick that can down the road.
You do, yeah.
And of course, now with off-plan mortgages as well. Okay, you're not going to get 75%, mortgage, but you'll get a 50% mortgage. So as long as you've been able to pay half of the value, the other half, you really don't have to worry about it because then it's on a 10, 15 or 20-year payment plan effectively through the bank, through the mortgage. So even that, they're making not only rents easier for tenants, they're also making buying easier. And that's the benefits, I think, rather than slashing prices, because that's not Dubai style. That's not the UAE style. It's actually to offer value or added value, I think, and that's where it comes in.
And let's hope that real estate brokers can add
value.
more value on top of that, because what we would hope to see, when times are tough, you've got to stand out, you've got to find a way to do that. So maybe better training, maybe investing in tech, cleaning up data, taking on, more responsibility to clients, just to upgrade.
No, of course. And sorry, just going back to the point, which I think actually I didn't make. There were and potentially still are too many brokers, and so this conflict has wheedled out. I'm not even going to say the bad ones, because I don't think anybody intentionally sets out to be a bad broker, but the professional ones, the ones that have been around in the good times as the bad times as well as the good times, are the ones that people should seek out. Because if they've survived that period, then there must be something about them.
Yeah.
And so too many brokerages, too many agents, in a weird way, the conflict has made it more streamlined. But, we all have short memories. And the fact is that if we do start to, dare I say, pick up, whether it's later on this year, next year. I mean, Dubai will bounce back, in a good way. And so everybody will then jump on the bandwagon again. So this is a cycle that just keeps coming and going. And unless there is a seismic change from the DLD or from RERA to actually do something. It's these catastrophic world events like a conflict that do it for us. I'd rather, to be honest with you, if we're in this situation again in years and years to come, that we don't wait for a conflict to sort of kick out the rubbish boys and girls. Is for RERA to do something, or the land department to come up and do something. That would be better.
This is the nature, isn't it, though, of the market in the UAE. Still a young market, nascent market, but it moves it's pretty unique.
Breakneck speed.
Pretty fast pace.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you got to have good technical knowledge, good market knowledge. You've got to have good interpersonal intelligence. You've got to be able to read people to an extent. The regulatory updates come at you thick and fast. There's this huge investor base of people from 200 nationalities, however many it is that we have here. There's the prestige side, the luxury side, there's the more affordable side. It's an awful lot to learn. So my question is this. How do you excel as a real estate broker? What does a good real estate broker need? What's the key?
I mean, when you put it like that,
it's all of the above.
No,
I know,
exactly. But when you put it like that, it just brings to mind that individuals in real estate have to be, theologians. They have to be mentors. They have to be, coaches. They have to have patience. They have to be enthusiastic. They have to have knowledge. I mean, they have to be it's like a university. You look at what degree can I have? Well, you've got to know all of those things. Psychologist, you've got to be a mind reader.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's very easy to lump real estate brokers in with financial advisors, or whatever. It's very easy to stereotype, but it's very apparent that if you're going to do well at this and you're going to be good and offer value, this is a difficult job.
The one thing, look, everything you've said, you've got to be all of those things. But of course, nobody can be all of those things, or at least it takes time to become all of those things. Knowing when to speak, when to be quiet, when to listen, eye contact, body language, tonation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And often you don't necessarily learn that in a classroom. You learn it over years of experience. And that's why I would say to any company, if you've got somebody who's been in the marketplace for a while, and perhaps they're not doing as great as you would expect them to, give them time, because they've already learned all the attributes that they need. But to answer your question, and I want to make it as succinct as possible, is for an agent or a broker, just do what you say, is what I would say.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I say that is because if you're going to say you're going to be at a property at 3 o'clock, be at the property at 3 o'clock. Or if you say you're going to send something, send something. If you say you're going to call somebody at a certain time, call somebody at that certain time. Because what I find is there's a lot of hot air involved. And that then people say, oh, the agent's lying, because clearly they didn't deliver on their promise. In fact, another way of putting it is under-promising and over-delivering, which can be used in any business, not just real estate. But I often say to my agents, and it's a bit of a cliche really, but I say the competition out there is huge, but it's not very high. So all you have to be is that person who does what he says consistently. Now, I get sometimes you might be late because of traffic and what have you, but that's what phones are for. We have those now. When I was in real estate, we didn't have mobile phones. And I remember going on viewings and the person didn't turn up. And I came back and I said, oh, he never turned up. Yeah, he called on the landline 5 minutes after you left, So what I'm saying is we've got calls. You can WhatsApp, you think, but don't lie to people. Don't say I'm on my way when you're still at home.
Yeah.
That annoys me. People's time is very precious. And whilst things happen, you do get these, and sometimes it's just ingrained in a nationality, in a culture as well, that their time is more important to yours, so they can just rock up whenever they like. No, that's not how it works.
So, I mean, that's professional attitude, isn't
Well,
it?
yeah.
And I think that's a very fair point, because it goes a long way. That's the starting point of trust, I think. And you've got to trust your real estate agent. And that trust has to grow. So that's the first thing.
But building trust comes, and you're right, is not given to you straight away.
No.
Now, maybe there is a perception if the person that they're dealing with, let's say, take me, for example. If people know that this is Mario, he's been around the block, he knows a little bit or whatever, then already they put you on a bit of a pedestal in some respects. Which sometimes is tough, because you've got to keep in the same level that they think that you're at. But when they don't know the person at all, when there is, that trust hasn't even developed yet, what do you do? And that's why I say, just do what you say.
Be on time.
Yeah, well, be on time. Whatever you say, just deliver. Because then, as the hours pass and the days pass and the weeks pass, assuming the person is taking time in buying, then that trust slowly starts to be built upon. And the more someone sees value in you, and value can be anything, then the more they will want to work with you. But they don't know that at the beginning.
Well, exactly. So if you have that professional attitude and you are on time and well presented, all of the other stuff, the next thing for me is market knowledge. You made this point many times. Lots of brokers are new to Dubai, new to the market, don't really understand the landscape, whether that's regulatory or the actual landscape, but have some knowledge. And it's a continual evolving learning thing, isn't it? That, I need to be saying to you, if you're my real estate agent, so what about this? What about this area? And do you think that would be a good bet? And is this good for me? Are the schools there good? It's all that is the next stage, I think. And then the trust really starts to grow.
Correct. And if a new agent comes in and says, but I can't, I don't know what I don't know. And that's fine.
Fine.
And that's true. But in today's age, there are many outlets where you can learn a lot more than, again, if I go back 18 years, we didn't do podcasts. We didn't have all this information. We had a bit of information, but we didn't have a lot of it. So there's no excuse for an individual not to sort of learn it. But again, that takes time. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's a chicken and egg situation. You've got to, I'm going to say it, fake it till you make it. But I always say, don't lie. I don't know whether I can say it on air, bull people,
I know where you're trying to go with that. But that's a really good point. So fake it till you make it is fine. That's that illusion of confidence, right?
Yeah.
But if you take the view that I will fake it till I make it, but I'm going to really learn so that I do make it.
Or if you don't know the answer, then just say, look, I've got an amazing manager, I've got amazing whatever. I can't answer that. Allow me to make one phone call, and I'll get that answer for you. And I think the individual who receives that information is going to be more likely to still want to deal with that person. Yeah, they may have seen fragility. They may have seen, an issue that, well, clearly he's not as experienced as I thought. And sometimes age isn't there, because it could be an older person getting into the industry late.
Yeah.
But I often say a few grey hairs does help you a bit. And especially now that the buyers are also older people as well as younger people. As I say, when I first came here, older buyers weren't around. They were all in their, 30s and 40s kind of thing. Now 50s and 60s-year-olds are buying. They're still around, or as a second home, or as a holiday home or something like that, where they spend 6 months of the winter here and then 6 months maybe in Europe, etc. So if you don't know the answer, don't fabricate the answer. Don't make it up. Put forward the fact, well, I think it's this. There's no harm in saying, I believe it's this, but let me just double check on that. And you can hide behind the fact that, as you just said, the market moves so quickly, legislation moves so quickly. I just need to update myself to see if that is still the case. Give me a minute, give me 10 minutes, give me half an hour, give me half a day, whatever it is. But I have to say that it is a tough job because there is no loyalty in real estate. There is no loyalty with clients at all. If they see, if they think that you don't know what you're talking about, they're moving on to the next person. And especially if what they see online is exactly what they want and what you're trying to sell them isn't quite what they want. But the other thing to note is that most agents pretty much can work with each other, and they just they just split the fees. So as long as you found a good agent, it doesn't mean that if that person doesn't have the inventory that you want to buy, that they can't actually go out there and get them. Although there are some agents who will turn around and say, I don't work with other agents, that's their prerogative to do so, but mega frustrating when you have a buyer. And it happened to us yesterday. Ironically, the property that I'm currently in, the current agent, I've never spoken to my landlady. He's only the one that wants to deal with it. And being in real estate, I said, well, I could help you. He said, no, I'm okay. One of my agents yesterday said to me, the place you're staying in, can I do a viewing? I said, well, you can. So we showed it. An offer came in. The offer was put forward to the other agent, clearly, because he has access to the owner. Yeah. And he said, no, I don't deal with agents. And actually, I'm working on a couple of people. The guy's done 4 viewings in 3 months. Okay, that's all he's done.
Really?
So unless he is telling the truth and he is working with somebody, perhaps he is, he's missed out on an opportunity because the offer that came in was only slightly less than the asking price. And the owner doesn't even know about it because this guy has decided he doesn't want to work with other agents. He doesn't want to share his fee. And that's where greed sets in as well. And I think that's not right. To me, half a deal is better than no deal at all because at the end of the day, it should be about your clients. And this person is just clearly making it all about his fee or the hope that he can collect all the fee because he thinks he's got maybe someone who might be offering. And maybe they do. I don't know. He's not mentioned that to me.
Do you think we're at a time where it's more about being consultative rather than transactional
100%, like that? 100%. Yeah. Very, very much so. And I said that before. They've got to be, they've got to be consultants and advisors and not salespeople at all. So yes, and the more, especially dare I say, the younger brokers out there realize that, the better. But of course, they're in that difficult position that they're not able to consult, if I can put it that way, to the same level as someone else who's been in the marketplace a little bit longer. And that is why, before they dive into that pool, they literally should just soak up as much information as possible. Have that courage and that confidence to come across that this is what they've learned, and despite the fact that they might only be, 25, 26 or whatever, it doesn't matter. If they've absorbed the knowledge and they keep themselves up to date and they are becoming area specialists, so they know which is the 24-hour chemist, they know which is the nearest nursery, they know if there's a senior school around the corner, they know where the parks are, the pools, etc. If they know all of that from the secondary market point of view, then again, they're adding value to their client. Did you know this or did you know that? What are the service charges? Now, of course, we can find all these things out. And if every question that a client asks an agent is, I don't know, then of course that person is not going to have the confidence that person is the one that's going to find them the right property. It is very difficult. So that's why I'm saying have as much knowledge as you possibly can, but don't arrive in Dubai off the plane and say, I'm going to be a real estate agent and think you're going to be successful overnight, because it's a tough job. And it's a tough job that people don't realize. They think we just sit around, drink coffee, and collect so much commission, when actually the reality is you need to walk in my shoes a little bit before you can make that assumption.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do by asking you, and it's come out. I mean, I've got a couple of pages of notes, strategies for success and hidden market indicators and be a bridge, not a barrier, and all that stuff.
My goodness!
But what you've just said, and I'm interested in what your experience, Mario.
No, but the jargon has come out.
The jargon, I know, I do like
business jargon.
But basically, you've said, look, know your stuff, do what you say.
In
That's
a nutshell,
the key.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I could do a seminar, a webinar as to the intricacies, etc. But literally, get as much information as you can possibly glean in dare I say, a shortest period of time. And just do as you say, and the rest will come. Because if you're a personable individual anyway, if there's interest in your voice, if you're monotone and you speak like this, I used to have a physics teacher that spoke like that. You could imagine how many people were sleeping in the back row of the. It was a college.
You didn't go into science, did you?
I didn't. No. Look, physics intrigued me, but my God, did this guy make you fall asleep? So, but if he jumped around, if he was interesting, if there was tonation in his voice, if he was. Talking with his hands like I do, etc. There's something to look at. If it's just words, no. Which is why often when you do these graphs and you show pictures, people will remember pictures, they don't remember words. So if you're like that, the rest will follow suit. But the opposite of that is you can be an introvert and be a good real estate agent as well. Because not everybody needs that person bouncing around the room. I mean, some people, they find that just too much. There is also the thinker, methodically giving information and adding value in a completely different way. That is also very good.
But it comes down to a very similar thing, doesn't it? Know your stuff. You don't have to be, the Italian man moving his hands about, Mario Volpi.
I've hit the microphone a couple of times.
You do, but that's fine. But do what you say as well. It's fascinating. I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about, but I wanted to just touch on that story because I think it's particularly important at the moment. As always, Mira Volpi is Senior Manager at Eva Real Estate. He's a podcaster, he's a columnist, he's a man who knows a little bit about real estate.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I appreciate you allowing me to come a bit earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't forget, like and subscribe. This is Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM, where business comes to talk.
This is Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive with the UAE's 30th of June Emiratisation deadline fast approaching, just over a week away. Businesses are now racing to meet targets and also to attract local talent. So joining us now, Zakaria Dole is the founder of Dowlati, which is an AI-powered Emirati hiring platform. And what it does is it does the obvious. It connects employers with local talent and vice versa. So I want to talk about the state of Emiratisation, the opportunities for Emirati professionals, and also the things that businesses need to know before the deadline. Zakaria, good to have you here. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. It really is an honour.
You're very welcome. You see the data firsthand through your platform, right? So beyond this deadline, which is looming literally next week, how has the perception of Emiratisation changed among smaller businesses, but also the larger corporations this year, do you think?
Sure, absolutely. So to address kind of your point of the perception, I think if we first look at the larger employers, it's typically the ones with access to much bigger Emiratisation budgets and hiring budgets. They are the employers that can really access, the diamond talent. And I think that a lot of these smaller companies as well, they just need the right tools to also be able to access truly exceptional Emirati talent. And that's what Dowlati is really all about. It's about providing companies, employers with ambitious Emirati talent that can really take them to that next level.
Okay. So what are you hearing from employers? I mean, the deadline it's next week. What are employers saying to you now?
I think there's kind of two camps of employers, really. We have the ones that have been planning all year, workforce planning, things like this, and they're getting ahead on their Emiratisation goals. And then there's the other camp, which is more of a bit of a scramble, right?
I was going to say, help!
Yeah. The deadline comes and they, picking up the phone, calling any Emirati they can, extending offers, they're all over the place, scrambling to hire those UAE nationals in order to be compliant. And those are the ones that really kind of struggle now.
Yeah, they're the ones that need help. I mean, we hear a lot about the talent gap, right? That's a phrase. Is the challenge finding the right skills, or is it a mismatch in expectations between what local talent's looking for and what the businesses are actually offering?
I think there's a few actually misconceptions within Emiratization. There's 3 myths. I think one of those myths is that people think that Emirati talent is too expensive to hire. I also think that another one of them is they won't stay, and there's like an unwillingness that they don't really want to work. And then thirdly, there's not enough of them. I actually disagree with all of them. I think, firstly, to address the too expensive point, there is now a set baseline minimum salary for UAE nationals, which is about 6,000 dirhams, which I think isn't far off most expat talent after visas and everything like this. Then in terms of the won't stay factor, right? If we look at why retention and turnover might be so high, I think it's because we get into a position where employers, they have this looming deadline, and then they must panic hire. So they rush hire to hire any UAE national that they possibly can. And 9 times out of 10, when they do hire that UAE national talent, they're not truly a good fit for the role, right? They're just hiring from a compliance, from a compliance perspective, a compliance standard, rather than someone that's truly able to, grow into that role. Because ultimately, that is what UAE nationals are looking for. They're looking to contribute, show their skills within the private sector. I think I'm a living example of that. I think PwC came out with a study, and I think that they said it was about 61% of young UAE nationals are actually willing and wanting to work in the private sector. As I said, I think I'm a living example. Really, the chance for career growth and trajectory for UAE nationals in the private sector is massive. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of UAE nationals get treated more from a compliance perspective than a growth perspective. And I think that
it's ticking the box, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the narrative that we really want to change at Dolity. It's providing the employers with the best UAE national talent to really propel their company. Something that we like to say is view Emiratization as your competitive advantage, right? Not something it's just about compliance. Especially in this country, it gives so much to us. I think UAE nationals feel the exact same way, and they really want to be able to give back and make sure that they're in positions that are meaningful, not just the receptionist role that gets the minimum amount of work.
So it's dispelling these kind of stereotypes, these misperceptions.
Exactly,
is important. Okay, how prepared is the private sector now compared to the previous kind of Emiratization? Well, let's call them target periods, for want of a better phrase. But how much better is it? Better?
I would say it's far more mature than a few years ago. Obviously, Emiratization has come into effect for quite a few years now. The market has grown completely upwards. We have 152,000 Emiratis currently in the private sector, employed by 29,000 companies. And this new frontier is the 20 to 49 size company, SMEs also being part of this Emiratization mandate now as well. So I think the mindset has shifted faster than kind of the tools and the machinery to really support that mandate.
Okay. I'm interested in the misconceptions. I think I said misperceptions. That should be a word as well. What are the biggest misconceptions businesses still have about hiring Emirati talent? What do you see every day? What do your friends, say to you?
Yeah, as I was saying before, I think it's still those 3. It's too expensive. They won't stay. And maybe there's not enough UAE national talent to actually fill the quota. But I think the supply side is definitely there. There's enough ambitious UAE nationals, but it's just the discovery. The gap is discovery in finding that talent. That's the disconnect.
Right. You mentioned there, make Emiratization, your kind of your USP, like a business advantage. But do you think companies are beginning to view Emiratization in that way, or is it still to many it's kind of ticking the box? It's a compliance thing. We've got to do it. How is that changing?
I would say we're kind of at the frontier of change, but I do believe that most companies are still somewhat in compliance mode. The advantage framing is where the market is going. I think, the early movers are definitely getting there, and there are some truly exceptional examples with exceptional Emiratis working in those companies. And I think that that's the broader narrative that's being built now, but it's on its way up.
Okay. What are the sectors that are making the strongest progress in attracting, but also, I mean, the key is retaining the talent? Who's doing well?
So I think we see a lot of success in, the banking and financial sectors. Within Dolity itself, we actually cover a massive range of industries. We see real estate, finance, IT, education, healthcare, and there's also a big push now to hire UAE nationals specifically in the healthcare sector. So, that will be interesting.
All right. So, and what are Emirati job seekers looking for? If there was a list of these are my requirements, if there was a reverse checklist, if you like, what are Emirati job seekers looking for from employers?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because this is really the founding story behind Dolity, and this is why I'm so passionate about this industry. For me, being a UAE national, I think there was a little bit of a misconception that it was going to be incredibly easy for me to find a role that I could grow into, something that I really loved and I can give back to the country and things like that. While that is true, I don't think that opportunity exists for every single UAE national, right? I think, unfortunately, a lot of them, they do get stuck in just the compliance-driven roles, right? They're just looking at a salary, whereas I think for the majority of the UAE nationals, it's not just about the salary anymore. I think it's really about growth. It's about purpose. It's about, being hired for the role, because they truly fit for the role, not just for the quota itself. I think if I could try and build or say a sentence of what UAE nationals might be crying out for, it's almost like, hire me for what I can do rather than what I represent on your compliance sheet, almost.
Yeah, it was understandable, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
That's what anybody wants.
Right.
I mean, and I feel a bit of a fake asking that question in a way, but I think it's a valid question, because what people look for in a job shouldn't really vary, should it? But I think that's one side of it. I'm not just a tick in a box.
Yeah, exactly. Also for UAE nationals, I think we're very proud people.
Sure.
And they're really proud of their country. They're really proud to represent. And I think that they just ultimately want to give back. And in giving back, it is having a job where they feel like they can grow.
Yeah, okay. Where you make a real kind of commitment, I suppose. Has the quality and the variety of private sector opportunities, how much has it improved in recent years, Zachary?
I think that is also night and day. Emiratization has been a law for a few years now. And I think 5 years ago, it was a handful of those kind of token roles, very kind of basic compliance roles, right? Whereas today, we're really seeing a broad range. Within our platform itself, we see some roles which are marketing managers for luxury fashion brands, and we see other things for food and beverage and in the retail space. It's really just kind of engineering products. And something that's amazing is we've actually had a few space-based roles, which I'm incredibly passionate about as well. I think that's kind of the frontier of humanity, but we won't go there. Engineering, products, finance, space. As I said, the spread is very real, and I think it is growing. Obviously, there's an element of, well, of course that's the case, because there's obviously an increased amount of Emiratization as a requirement. I think I know that now we sit in about a 10% Emiratization requirement for companies over 50 skilled employees working in their companies. So the amount of roles that kind of have had to be brought into this pool for UAE national talents has also grown.
Right. What are the challenges for businesses? Let's put the other hat on for a moment. What challenges do businesses face when it comes to recruiting local talent?
So I think you kind of have four main key ones. The first one is being discovery, right? So traditional channels, I think, are really quite slow for employers to find talent that's actually a great fit. Part of the founding story actually is when I was in university, I was looking around online for potential job opportunities once I graduated, and it was a little bit of a disarray, right? There was a big disconnect between the roles that I was seeing, whether that was on different job platforms, and a lot of job platforms that are actually utilized for Emiratization, for example, LinkedIn, is not curated around UAE nationals or nationalization specifically, right? So you have employers posting roles and hundreds of non-UAE nationals applying for these positions. So these poor talent acquisition managers spend hours just. The first job is filtering through who.
The filtering is the thing, isn't it?
Exactly. So discovery is definitely one of them. Speed, I think, is another, because that discovery process takes so long. It's reported within our own kind of internal systems that hiring a UAE national takes typically about 2 to 3 months, or 1 to 3. It really ranges, or it's about how much access you have to those resources. But when you have a mandate, you really need to be able to hire that UAE national talent quickly. So on Dolity, we've seen companies be able to actually hire 8 UAE nationals in just 2 weeks. That was one of our kind of first big testimonials that really was a light bulb moment for me and made me feel like a lot of the work that we're doing is actually worth it. Would also say that retention is a big challenge. As we mentioned before, a lot of these compliance roles, it's not actually a good fit for the UAE national. They're actually not very satisfied because there's not much growth for them. And then they decide to actually turn over and change roles. And then another one, as I was kind of talking about earlier, is the verification element. So a lot of a lot of non-UAE nationals apply for the UAE national specific roles. And what actually happens sometimes is there is such an influx of non-UAE nationals to the UAE national specific roles that then, your diamond Emiratis are actually missed because there's so much noise.
We hear this from recruiters all the time that, people just think, well, I'll give it a go. But you're not an Emirati. Why would you apply for a role that specifically says Emirati or whatever specific criteria? Oh, well, you never know. But you end up missing. Potentially missing the right person, don't you? Is there enough Emirati talent available to meet, the demand?
I think definitely. This is a myth that we're super passionate about busting at Dolity. So within our launch, which was about 6 months ago now, at the Tawdeef Career Fair in Abu Dhabi, which is a Emirati-specific career fair, we've grown to about 6,000 UAE nationals within our platform today. I think what companies are saying is we can't find them. It usually actually means we don't really have the right infrastructure and the right tools to find those candidates, because a lot of a lot of employers, like I mentioned earlier, they're complaining about not being able to find UAE nationals. And where are they looking? On LinkedIn, right? Where LinkedIn is not the home of the UAE nationals, really. Right. It's its own hiring ecosystem, and then Emiratization has been, added to the top of it. Whereas
it's been bolted on top.
Exactly, right. Whereas, with the Dolity platform, from the ground up, Emiratization was the core of that business from day one.
But if you're Emirati, just as if you're British, American, Bangladeshi, whatever, you should be on LinkedIn, shouldn't you? You should have your profile there.
Absolutely, I have one myself, and that's actually how we reach out to a lot of employers, UAE nationals, spread the word. I think it's a great platform for spreading the word. But actually, if you ask my personal opinion, I think it's kind of moved away from the professional network that it used to be. Sometimes LinkedIn now can be a bit noisy, filled with.
Yeah, I did see a lot of Father's Day stuff yesterday, and I did think, well, is that the right platform for you? Your daughters are very nice, I'm sure, but Let me ask you about AI as a matchmaker, and about how AI, and I suppose tech as well, can help, because Dolity you use AI to facilitate connections, right? So in a process that has got kind of traditionally relied on networking, word of mouth, how does an AI-powered approach improve the quality of the hire, rather than just, obviously, it's faster?
Sure. So before I answer that question, I just kind of want to mention one point. I think alhamdulillah, the UAE runs and spearheads so much technological and kind of urban advancements. My question before starting Dolati was, why can't we use that same, spearhead philosophy to guide the tools that we use to actually hire the UAE nationals, right?
Okay.
So now to answer your question about how AI itself is actually transforming the hiring landscape, what's able to happen is every time there's a role posted, let's say there's hundreds of applicants coming through, rather than an employer or a talent acquisition manager looking through every single candidate profile individually, what's happened is when they sit down and they open the computer to begin with, every single candidate, every single profile is already ranked and essentially shortlisted for you, right? We will present all of your candidates, all of your applicants in an order of relevance. And how we're doing this is proprietary, like machine learning technology, in which we cross-examine the parameters of the job seeker profile to the requirements of the job posting itself. And then we can create what we call a matchability score. And then using that matchability score, we present it not only to the job seekers themselves when they're actually applying to these roles, but also the employers. And now what's great about this kind of two-sided AI scoring is the job seekers are actually applying to roles that are truly a good fit for them. And that's also what the employers are seeing, right? So by facilitating this match on both ends, you really get like a broader kind of ecosystem of AI connectivity and relevant hiring.
Okay. What is it? I don't know if this is going to be any different from what you've already said, but I'm interested because AI is this, it's this whole new frontier for most of us. What does AI reveal about what Emirati professionals are actually looking for in an employer? Is it, compensation? Are there softer factors that move the needle? Does AI reveal anything different?
I think that actually, a lot of people, they often think it's all about the salary, whereas it's actually about, I've seen a lot of compelling packages. Just by having a compelling package, you get quite a lot of traction in attracting that UAE national talent, It's also
the banner, isn't it? It's the lights. Yeah.
Exactly. It's also about kind of career growth. I've seen roles that I find super interesting, which, to be honest, if I wasn't building this company myself, I think I would have loved to apply for them, because I do think that they're very interesting.
Open to work.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Myself being a job seeker on the application, just obviously the founder of the company, obviously I'll have a profile on it. I have seen and been matched with a lot of roles, and I'm like, wow, that's a really cool role, which is, for me, it's super positive. And these are roles that what's happening is it's looking at my work experience, right? And it's recommending my skills and my work experience to different roles that exist within that platform. Yep. And some of them can be, based off of your skills. So sometimes you can have maybe a potentially wacky suggestion, but actually when you read between the lines, it is really quite a good fit because we're using that, semantic AI scoring to source.
Okay. So it's a good way. It's a good way of finding it. It actually aids, doesn't it, in finding that diamond in the rough, right? I suppose. 100%. Yeah, and matching. For businesses scrambling to meet June the 30th, the deadline, there's a temptation, I guess, as people scramble to take shortcuts. So what would your advice be to a CEO, a founder, somebody running a business who's focused purely on compliance? What are they risking by ignoring the kind of retention side of the equation?
By ignoring the retention side of the equation, I think, because Emiratization is checked semi-annually, what's going to happen is, they rush hire, they do all of this, and then as soon as that second compliance window comes up, which will be in December, obviously now we're in the June window, they're just going to run into the exact same issue. So it will be a fundamentally core kind of broken problem that they're going to keep running into until they truly fix the problem at its heart. Something that I like to think about is, would you ever hire someone that's actually not a good fit for a role? Let's say if they weren't a UAE national?
It's a really good question. I mean, it should be, shouldn't it? Just the right person for that particular role at that time.
Exactly right. Exactly. You wouldn't see it in a non-UAE national. I don't know.
It's not that difficult, is it?
No, it really isn't. It really isn't. Especially with the tools that are out there now.
We're out of time, unfortunately. Zakaria Dola is the founder of Dolati, which is an AI-powered Emirati hiring platform. The deadline is June the 30th, so if you're scrambling, Should have started earlier.
Yeah.
It'd be good to talk to you, Zachary.
Thank you very, very much. I
Thanks
really
for coming
appreciate
in.
it.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Mira Business FM. This is Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive. Alternative assets right now, and luxury watches are no longer just status symbols. They are, of course, still status symbols, but in the UAE, they're increasingly being treated as financial assets. So Dubai Business is tapping into that trend with a new buyback model. And what it does is it allows owners to unlock cash from high-end timepieces, and then there's an option to buy them back later on. George Flo is the founder of the Heritage Club. That's the company behind what it says is the region's first luxury watch purchase and buyback service. And he's here. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here, George. I'm fascinated with this because we're seeing this with different levels of alternative assets. The first time I've heard about this with watches. So are we moving into an era where an AP, I'm going to use the right terminology, or a Patek Philippe or a Rolex is just another form of liquid capital?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think people are becoming a bit more astute to the fact that they can purchase a watch that they can enjoy, they can admire, and for it also to have an inherent secondary residual value that they can capitalize on. So I think it's becoming a lot more commercially aware for, buyers and collectors to know that what they've got on their wrist is ultimately a liquid asset.
Well, it is. I mean, you see some amazing watches. Dubai, in particular, there's a great deal of availability. People walking around with a house on their wrist, probably a mansion on their wrist, a Marbella pad on their wrist. So what your buyback service allows owners to unlock cash from their watches. They have an option to buy them back. Why is now the time to introduce this here?
I think raising capital in Dubai, with Dubai being such a hub of business, I think is quite difficult. It can be quite rigid. A lot of the methods of raising finance, the traditional methods of finance, often are quite long. They're quite tiresome. We're talking banks, PGs, debentures, drawdown fees. For a solution where someone who can literally come in and within 90 minutes have, additional funds instantly, it's that speed, that solution, that route to market that I think is paramount.
You can see it now as well, can't you? I mean, I'm looking at the watch that you're wearing today, which is
This is Audemars Piguet.
Audemars Piguet. This is a Royal Oak
Jumbo. Yeah.
Jumbo, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's an expensive watch. I won't be crass and ask you how much it is, although I am fascinated. But the thing is, these are very widely traded items. The values of watches like that and many others are widely available. So I suppose if you're looking to leverage that value, you know exactly what you're going to get. You could very easily go online and you know what it's worth. Is that kind of the thinking?
100%. Watches are now and have become a universal currency that everyone understands. The residual values and the awareness and knowledge of markets of watches is global. So, and they're very, very easy to ascertain a price, a current market valuation, and buyers today have become a lot more astute. Instead of just buying for the love of the watch or the craftsmanship, they're also buying knowing that it's an asset that potentially can appreciate, but it's also an asset that they can leverage as well.
Well, certain models just appreciate, don't they?
Not all watches, not all brands appreciate. That's the common misconception. Okay. However, every watch, every brand does have a secondary residual value.
Right.
So you're never going to get stuck. It's someone once said to me, if you've got a Rolex, you'll never go skint, because you can always cash out wherever you are, anywhere in the world. Because, like I said, it's a currency that everyone understands.
I think everybody knows what skint means, but for anybody that doesn't, skint is no cash.
No
But
cash.
anyway, I think people know that. So tell me about the buyback model. How does it work, and how much traction are you starting to see? Because you're here, what, six
We're
months?
here 6 months,
Yeah.
and we're already custodians in excess of over 10 million AED. So we are super busy. So
$2.5 million worth
Yeah.
of. Okay.
So it's how it works is I wanted to put together a solution that offers speed, transparency, and ultimately unparalleled levels of service. So a client will make an appointment in the office. It's strictly appointment only for the discretion of our clients. They come in, the watch is valued by we have a valuation team, and we've also developed state-of-the-art AI technology, which will basically identify the watch from a picture. It will scan the entire internet and find the average retail price.
Okay.
And then it will make an instant, reduction as to where we want to be when we're buying the watch.
Right.
So it's all calculated on real-time sort of metrics. So we will agree the terms with the client. They have an option of what's called a 30-day buyback, which means we will buy the watch from the client and offer them a contractual guarantee where we will sell the watch back to them in 30 days.
Okay.
So super simple. They come in, they make the appointment, the watch will be authenticated. The watch will then be placed into our donut, which is like a watch roll, a watch box, and it will then
I love that it's called a donut.
Yeah, we call it a donut.
Okay.
So then it will be placed into a tamper-proof security bag that both the client and I execute. The bag will then be sealed, and then it will be sent off to a 24/7 vault where it will stay under a temperature-controlled environment, CCTV, security, all the rest of it, and it will remain there whilst it's in our custody. And it will only come back when the client phones us to say, "Gents, I'm ready to come back and reacquire my watch." And at that point, the watch will be delivered to the office, and we will physically open the bag in front of the client, giving them the reassurance and the trust to know that their watch, their prized possession, has been in safekeeping. It hasn't been touched. It hasn't been, worn at some beach club or anything like that. They've got complete confidence and, reassurance to know that, the service is elite and, 100% bona fide.
Okay. So you're not wearing my friend Steve's watch today, then?
Absolutely not. No.
I have no friends called Steve, but it was worth a try. So, so after 30 days, what happens? I've deposited my prized possession, one of my prized collection watches with you, and I think, no, I need it back. What happens then?
So you've got three options at the end. So we offer two terms: a 30-day term or a 60-day term, and it's dependent on the value of the watch as to which one is more suited. If you have a watch in excess of, let's say, $100,000, it would fall within the 30-day buyback.
Okay.
So if our minimum requirement for the buyback solution to work is a 25,000 dirham watch, so £5,000 sterling,
Yeah.
they would be applicable for the 60-day option. But talking about the 30-day option, so a week before the end of the 30 days, you'll receive a reminder, both on text message, email, to say that the 30 days of your buyback agreement is coming to an end, and you'll have three options. The first, to repurchase the watch at the pre-agreed amount that we obviously originally discussed. Two, you can opt to extend the agreement for another 30 days. This is very, very common at the moment because the watch is already in our vault. It's already been authenticated. It's already stored. So for the client, by simply paying the service fee, which is the 1 month fee that we charge for our storage, authentication, and insurance, they can extend the watch for an additional 30 days to give them the...
And is that a percentage of the value? How does that work?
So there's no fixed percentage. We don't work on percentages.
Okay.
We offer a service fee, which is based purely on the value of the watch, and that is linked directly to our insurance, the storage, and the authentication. So it's variable and it's contingent on, it's bespoke on each watch.
Right. And how I'm fascinated by this, how this works. How many times could I opt to, okay, well, I've had my money from it, but I want to keep going here. How many times could I renew the agreement?
There's no end date. We're pricing the watch to the point where it's affordable enough we're not offering the client retail money.
Yeah.
It's more like trade money. And the reason for that is it needs to be an affordable amount for them to want to come back and repurchase the watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of the watches are not purely just investment pieces. They hold an inherent sentimental value, and the client's going to want them back. So, they can extend, providing they pay the service fee, they can carry on extending. The solution is built to give the client the flexibility, for as long as they want.
So if you've been passed a watch by a grandfather,
Yes.
for example,
Yeah.
this is something that people looking to get some value from it, but they don't want to lose the watch. It has a sentimental value. So that's kind of at the crux of somebody that might renew.
So collectors renew. It's not just this, the sentimental value. Like, people are curating collections now where they understand, brands, models, and they're building a portfolio of watches that ultimately are appreciable assets that they don't want to sell. But if they can leverage and they can borrow smartly for a short period of time, that's what they're doing. And for us, what's important is raising the awareness that this solution exists. And since we've launched, the demand has been crazy. And for the first 3 months, we operated purely on a referral and a recommendation basis, which is.
And that was enough to get your business up and running.
Yeah, I knew that we were going to be busy from the off, because it's a hub of watch enthusiasts. It's like the only place in the world you can actually wear your £2 million timepiece and grace it.
It's the one thing that the tabloids get right about Dubai, I think. So look, if treating a luxury watch as a financial asset requires a very different level of rigor, I think, than just selling one on the secondary market.
Yeah.
Okay, so from time to time, the secondary market for certain sort of iconic models, like the one on your wrist today, sometimes those cool off, not for the one on your wrist today, to be fair. How do you quantify liquidity value and manage the risk of declining prices for the money that you have in custody? What, 10 million dirhams, $2.5 odd million?
So if let's say, for example, if the watch is worth $100,000, we're giving the client probably around 65, 70. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we're edging on the side of caution, and the reason for that is because watch prices do fluctuate.
Yeah.
And it also links back to the fact that our intention is not to keep the client's watch. It's purely to offer them a facility where they can release immediate cash secured against it. So it has to be affordable enough for them to want to come back and repurchase the watch. If I'm offering the client retail money, there's no incentive for them to say, well, I want it back on a commercial, standpoint. Forget the sentimental. They'll be you might as well just keep it. But it's priced low enough. Now, that is also linked to the fact that a lot of our clients that come to us have a particular figure in their mind that they need to realize, whether or not it's for a financial endeavor, whether or not it's for their business, whether or not it's for a new opportunity. And that certain figure they need to raise, you often find that people have more than one watch, and they're like, George, I need to raise £1 million dirham. I need to raise 2 million dirham. Which of these watches within my collection will get me to that figure that you can pay me that today?
Where did you get the knowledge from? Is this just something that this is something you love?
I'm very passionate about watches, and to be honest, it's I've been a collector of watches, albeit on I'd say here in Dubai on a very small level.
Right.
But watches and cars have always been my passion from a young age, and it's just more recently. When I bought out my business partner in a former life, I was in recruitment.
Right.
It cost me £1 million to buy him out, and I used all the cash in the bank to pay him off, and I was petrified because I didn't have any reserve cash, and I had this one watch that was my favorite, and it was a Patek Philippe 5980, and it was the first chrono on a steel bracelet. And I said to my wife, I was like, this is a sleeper. It's going to appreciate massively. And I bought it for...
What did your wife say to that? She went, yeah, sure, George.
It's funny. My wife's gone from not knowing anything about watches to all of a sudden like, oh, this is a piece unique. And, she knows all the brands.
Surprising.
So I bought it for 23,000 and I had an offer just after I bought out my business partner for 40,000. So I thought, you know what? You're never going to go poor making a profit. And just psychologically, I needed some money in a benevolent fund. I just needed that reassurance. And I said to my wife, I was like, I'm making a massive faux pas in selling this watch now. I said, it's going to blow. And I sold it for 40,000. And within 3 months, that watch went to 110,000. And
that's sterling? So
yeah,
that
sterling.
Is
550,000 dirham. And I still kick myself to this day that you don't always have to sell. And up until now, till our solution, people are, the only way that they can liquidate is ultimately selling their watch and cashing out of it, which means not only do you lose the sentimental value, but you also lose the potential uplift that watch can give you. So, you're kind of killing yourself on both fronts. Whereas if you've got a solution there, a flexible solution with complete discretion, with a service where you're in and out in 90 minutes, there's no credit checks, there's no background checks, it doesn't affect your company's scoring, your D&B check, it's completely off the radar, where you're in and out in record speed, paid in either cash, wire or crypto. So any form of payment is doable, and have the flexibility to be able to use your assets smartly, because smart people borrow, they don't, they leverage, they don't sell. And this is the awareness that we are bringing to market, to the point where we have clients that are locals, Emiratis, and they're like, brother, I never knew this existed. This is so good. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you're happy. Like, literally, this is what we're here for. He's like, amazing, and and we have, at our launch party, for example, like I said earlier, we were working purely on a referral basis for the first 3-4 months, and then we did this big launch. Yeah. And we had clients turn up at the event, at the launch party. It wasn't a cloak and dagger. It's nothing. We're not operating in any form of seediness or shadiness. Like someone said to me, "Oh, you're like a glorified pawn shop," and I'm like, well, the biggest.
I can see the comparison, but I think there's a fascination with watches and watch collecting. It's maybe a particularly male pursuit. I don't know if that's even reasonable to say, but it strikes me that lots of guys like to collect stuff. Yeah. But there is a fascination with them, and there's a beauty to them. So I can kind of understand that.
And there's fundamental differences. Like we're not dealing with distress. We're not dealing with any form of.
No, it's a tangible asset.
But we're not dealing with people in distress. It's we're not operating behind acrylic glass. We're offering a solution for high net worth individuals that need to capitalize and move very, very quickly. So also be reassured that they're dealing in a service that's ultimately Rolls Royce, and that's for me the service levels that I want to adhere to. So
okay. So in terms of where are you licensed? How does that work? Is there even a license that?
So our license is for the buying and selling of watches.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's our license. Okay. So we're buying the watch from the client, and we're offering them a contractual guarantee to sell it back to them at a pre-agreed price. So we are respectful of local legislation, of Sharia law, and I just think it's an idea that hasn't been brought to market before, and this is where we're gaining traction.
Okay, there's something I wanted to ask you. I mean, there are things with watches, and you see these kind of antique shows, and if you've got the box and the original receipt, you've got the provenance. If there's an engraving on there that has a specific message or it's a certain person. That adds value to the watch, I guess. So you're looking at all of those things. It's not just your AI on the internet. There are different methods of establishing provenance, I guess.
As well as the app is real-time data. But we also go to the market for live trades amongst our dealer network, which is global. So in a nutshell, the more accompanying material that you have with the watch, the greater the value it's worth in both the secondary market and its residual sort of. So box papers, warranty card, even receipt of purchase all add to the value. With that said, we take even watches that are naked, and naked refers to the watch literally coming off the wrist with no associated paperwork or boxes. The only difference is you're going to lose roughly 20 to 25% of what you would have got if it had a full set.
It has that much of an effect?
It has, because you know, the reassurance for us is for every watch that we buy, and with every client, we CID check them as well. And we also check the global database for lost and stolen, and also for insurance fraud, to ensure that the watches are 100% clean. So in addition to that as well, we would also, you know, we have links at the manufacturers. So we will speak to Rolex, we will speak to AP, we will speak to Richard Mille, and just double check, because we are not just the stolen and all the rest of it, but we're also so close to China, where like I've seen some fakes come through that has scared the life out of me.
I was going to ask you about fakes and these super clones and
authentic AAA replica master clones, to the point where I had a dealer come to me and the watch was box fresh. I'd offered to pay him $450,000 for this one watch. He's gone, where do I sign? I said, relax. I said, we're not in a rush. I said, have a coffee. I said, we're going to get the watch authenticated. Now, we have a watchmaker who's a seasoned veteran of 30 years, as well as an authenticator as well, two very different things. And they will appraise our watches. So it's a thorough autopsy of the watch, where they look at the mechanism, they look at the mounting of the diamonds, they'll look at everything, you know, to ensure its provenance. And I said to my my boy in the office, Luke, I was like, the guy turned up, he had the box, he had the holder, he had the massive case, like the watch still had the stickers on it. And I said, well, we're wasting our money getting this authenticated. Now, for me to authenticate a Richard Mille watch cost me 5,000 dirham to authenticate one watch. But if I'm buying a watch for $450,000, it's worth me being double safe. Now, what I also did as well, doing my due diligence, there's a secret number behind the balance wheel on Richard Mille watches. I took that number and I contacted my representative at Richard Mille, and I confirmed that that number was true to what they had on the system. So I had very little doubt that the watch was indeed genuine. So we're getting it authenticated, and my authenticator says to me, G, walk away from this watch. I said, what? He says, walk away. I said, you can't just tell me walk away. I said, it's $450,000. I
thought that was watchman speak there for a minute, but it's normal speak.
I was like, I can't walk away from it. I want to make this client happy. He's a big guy, like a very prolific profile in Dubai. And he says to me, the watch isn't right. I said, you need to give me a bit more than that. I said, I've got to go back to him and tell him that there's no deal. And for our insurance, you know, we have to have every watch authenticated. So he says to me, when we look closely, there's tiny, tiny fragments of metal in the corners of the glass, which leads me to believe it's not a Swiss movement, it's a Chinese movement. And secondly, the fluidity of the mechanisms, it's not how it should. It's catching a tiny, tiny little bit, to the point where it leads me to believe it's not real. So, cut long story short, the watch was a master clone. And there's only two people in, let's say, UAE that can authenticate these level of watches, which is my guy and another gentleman in Dira. And at 11 o'clock at night, the client and I drove to Dira to get the watch double checked. And it was indeed an authentic replica, as they put it. And what they're doing in China now, they're buying one original watch, and they're taking key components from that original watch, and they're spreading it over 2 or 3 different watches. So that when
So the secret number there.
The secret number tallies up because it's come off a watch that was real.
Yeah.
And what they're doing from that one real watch, they're taking the tiny little bit like the balance wheel or the rotor or whatever, and they're just putting it into the other watches, so that at first glance, when you look at it, you're like, right, that's real, that's real, that's real. And if you're kind of second guessing, you'll put it more down to, well, maybe this one wasn't at the top of the quality control in the factory, but look, that's definitely real, that's definitely real. And then they make a decision. But, to make a bad call like that, like to lose $450,000 on one watch, that's scary.
That is. We're over time, unfortunately, George, so this is going to be be continued. I know,
That went super fast.
Time flies when you're having fun.
No, I loved it.
It's a tremendous story. Would you come back?
I'd love to. And like I said earlier, it's the first time on radio, so I'm super chuffed.
Well, you're a storyteller, there's no doubt about it. But I've got loads more questions to ask you. But for now, George Float is the founder of the Heritage Club. So great to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
It's the morning drive. It's Mira Business FM, and it's property and Saudi Arabia next. The tourism sector, more specifically, generated more than 82 billion riyals in visitor spending. That's the first 3 months of 2026. International tourists continue to account for the biggest share of spending. Let's look at this. It's a new report. Kevin Duffield is Regional Director of Built Asset Consulting at Cavendish Maxwell, here to talk about hospitality trends, hotel development plans, what's next for the Kingdom's tourism ambitions. Good to have you here. Good to
Thanks,
meet you.
Tim. Thank you for the invite and thanks for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. So Saudi Arabia recorded 82.7 billion riyals, to be exact, in tourism spending in Q1. So what were the big drivers behind the growth, Kevin?
So you've got two key drivers. The first one is obviously domestic tourism. That's driven by a couple of things. So firstly, political instability. I don't want to say war or conflict, so we'll say political instability. More people are looking at domestic tourism rather than travelling further afield. That's the first thing. And then secondly, you've got the foundation of religious tourism. You know, you've got seasonal demand, you've got Ramadan, you've got Eid, you've basically got Hajj. They've all, obviously with the changing of the calendar, the Islamic calendar, they've all fallen into Q1. So that has contributed towards that massive spend. And the thing is that we're going to have to look at Q2 and Q3 to see if that trend's actually going to continue. So in terms of, it's all very, very positive in Q1, but we need to see if that trend is going to continue throughout the year.
In terms of international travellers from outside, when you look at that figure, how much of it is part of this kind of calculated marketing push in the kingdom, or is there a shift in how the region maybe attracts international travellers, global travellers?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, international travellers made up a fifth in terms of the total travellers within this period, but they contributed to 60% of the total spend. They have higher spending capacity, higher spending threshold. They want more luxurious experiences, whether it's in terms of accommodation, whether in terms of F&B or leisure and entertainment. Yeah. So that kind of offsets that low volume. But also you need to look at is where are these metrics coming from? So international travellers that are actually coming through the gateways into the country, or is it international travellers such as Western expats that have decided to stay rather than travel, given obviously the instability in the region? Yeah. So there's a bit more drilling down into them numbers before you can come with a completely accurate figure, but primarily it's due to the higher volume of spend.
Okay, so international visitor numbers fell for obvious reasons, I guess, but spending is still strong. What else do you think? What's your opinion of what's behind that trend?
I think it's curiosity. I would agree with that. If I'm being completely honest, I grew up in Saudi in the late 70s, early 80s, and I can tell you there was certainly nothing compared to what they have now. And if you look at what is attractive in Saudi, you've got the Al-Ulas of the world, you've got the Red Sea developments, you've got hundreds of miles of beautiful coastline. You've then got either side of that, you've got the Abba region, and you've got the Neom and Jadina, you've got the mountainous regions. But then you've got what I would call the entertainment tourism. You've got Six Flags at Qadiyah, you've got Aqua Arabia. All these things have only really come about in the last 3 or 4 years, where they've been envisioned, and now they're actually starting to generate money. And the other thing as well is golf, believe it or not. The huge push with Golf Saudi, obviously you've got the Live, and Saudi has some amazing golf courses. And there's a huge plan to bring more online. And ironically, it is seeing a lot more golf tourism. It's actually cheaper to fly to Saudi for 2 days and play golf and stay in a hotel than it is to play one round in Dubai in the winter, believe it or not.
I can see that working for those people that wear that glove on the right hand, I suppose. So what is this? There's been a surge in spending, it's probably fair to say. What does it mean for hotel operators on the ground? Is it a struggle to keep pace, or is the infrastructure maturing in line with demand?
I think to answer the first part of the question, occupancies are generally down across the country, but the ADR's increased, conversely. And again, it comes down to choice, that there is more choice. There's choice in terms of where people can stay. and there's a choice in terms of the quality of accommodation that people can actually stay in. What we would class as a 3-star hotel anywhere else wasn't necessarily a 3-star hotel in Saudi, yet they have upped their game significantly. So you're getting that, and then what you're also getting is people that were maybe travelling for business are now extending that stay and looking at more of a leisure opportunity. They want to go to the Al-Ulas, they want to go to the concerts, you've got all the big events in Riyadh, and it makes sense that while you're there, you've got this sense of curiosity and let's go and explore Saudi and see what it has to offer.
So the data shows that a number of international tourists fell. They're still the primary kind of engine, spending-wise. Beyond like the high-end luxury sector, what does the data tell us about the type of tourist? Who's currently visiting the kingdom? Is it quite a diverse traveller profile? Is it heavily concentrated in the hubs in Riyadh, in Jeddah? What can you tell from the report?
It's become more diversified over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years in terms of who's travelling, who's coming into Saudi. The foundation is still obviously religious tourism, and it always will be.
Right.
You can look at the seasonal cycle of Hajj, and you look at Ramadan, you can look at Eid, and then you've got Umrah, which is obviously selective of when you go.
Yeah.
So that continues throughout the year. It's repetitive as well. People don't just do it once. Going back to Six Flags, you might go to Six Flags once or twice, but in terms of visiting, your Meccas, your Medinas, it's continuous. People will come in year on year. So you've kind of got that element of it. And then you've got, obviously, events. Riyadh is huge for all its events. You've got the Big Five going on at the moment. You've got the Future Hotels Summit. People are getting ready for Expo 2030, and then obviously ultimately FIFA 2034, I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, I want to ask you about that, actually. I want to come to that in a little while. So I mean, Mecca and Medina outperform the other destinations. I can see that in the report. Religious tourism clearly still driving demand in those two particular cities. That's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing also more as well is medical tourism. Interesting enough, it's not actually mentioned in the report. We didn't cover it, but Saudi has some amazing medical facilities,
right,
and some amazing medical practitioners. So we are seeing a lot more people that are kind of going over there for other major surgeries, cosmetic surgeries, etc., etc. And that obviously plays into the kingdom's push to move away from dependency on hydrocarbons, and tourism in whatever form and whatever capacity is one of their major drivers, which ties into obviously Vision 2030.
How significant is that at the moment for the tourism sector? Put that into some context for us, the medical tourism aspects.
I couldn't quantify it, to be quite honest.
It's something you can feel is really happening.
It's something that has been happening. I mean, if you look at, just by looking at the adverts, on the billboards, there's a lot more for cosmetic surgery as you drive through the centre of Riyadh. You drive down King Fahd Road or whatever.
That's a pretty good benchmark.
Well, yeah, because it's not cheap to advertise.
No, absolutely right.
So, there's obviously got to be some outturn from that.
Yeah.
And again, just word of mouth that people have gone to Saudi. I mean, I spent 5 years living in Riyadh prior to moving back to the UAE in 2024.
Right.
And the medical facilities are fantastic. There's no doctor surgeries per se. Everything is hospital or clinic driven, similar to Dubai, but usually on a bigger scale.
Okay. In terms of the significance of religious tourism, could you quantify that? Because, I mean, that's long been the reason why Saudi has led in tourism number terms.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean, look, religious tourism is a catalyst for all the tourism in Saudi at the end of the day. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have considered going to Saudi Arabia for a long weekend or a holiday. But the good thing about the religious tourism, because of the volume is increasing year on year and the demand's increasing year on year, it's almost like a litmus test for the hospitality market. You can look at how 2, 3, 4, 5-star luxury options actually perform in that market. And although it's not going to give you a holistic picture of the whole of KSA, as an investor, it would certainly give you a guidance in terms of what you should be spending your money on and where you should be spending your money.
You said at the start of when we started talking, domestic tourism has been, the driver of late. So that's a growing sector, I guess a rapidly growing sector in very recent terms. Is that helping offset, softer international demand? To what extent is it helping offset?
I wouldn't say it's offsetting it fully, but as you said, it's certainly softening, but that's due to volume.
Yep.
You've got a lower spend per head on domestic tourism, because most of that's made up with KSA nationals, but it's the volume. It's just the huge volume that's actually, again, curiosity wanting to explore what Saudi Arabia's got to offer. Usually people that live in Jeddah stay in Jeddah unless they're going to go across to Medina or Mecca. Right. Same as in Riyadh. But I have a lot of Saudi national friends, and when you talk to them, they're more interested in seeing what Saudi's got to offer them personally rather than travelling overseas. And obviously it's more cost effective as well. And there is a big push in Kingdom to get people to actually spend their earnings in country.
Yeah. Experience what's happening in the country as well, I suppose. Hotel room rates rising across much of the country, from what I can gather. What does that tell you about tell us about the market?
It tells us that the market's strong at the end of the day. People are flexing their choice. So, as I said earlier on, there was very limited options available. These options have increased, and people want more of a luxury experience. They're prepared to spend more on a stay, spend more on a meal, spend more on leisure and travel. So that's what's primarily driving that. It's just having that broader spectrum of choice.
And it's the choice that's going to keep improving as well, isn't it? If you look at the number of hotel rooms by 2030, not even 4 years away, 105,000 hotel rooms, that's the figure.
Yeah, 105,000 keys is what they're aiming at. And that is a huge amount of opportunity.
Level of expansion, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's not just, and as an investor, it's not just the hotel opportunity. Obviously, you've got the operators that want to go in and people that specialise in hotel investment. It's all the infrastructure that sits around it. Ras Al Khaimah is going through a similar problem now in terms of transport, in terms of roads, in terms of utilities, in terms of where do you house the staff?
Yeah.
And if you look at a 5-star hotel, I think it's 3 to 5 staff per guest. Where are they going to be housed? And again, accommodation, I wouldn't call it labour accommodation, blue-collar accommodation offers a significant investment opportunity if you are looking for something outside of that hospitality sector. Again, can the F&B and retail keep up with the growth? Because it's great throwing all these hotels up and getting people in, but if there's nothing there to service it, so it's got to keep pace with each other. So this growth has to be maintained, obviously, to meet the 2030 vision, but it's got to be carefully nuanced and carefully monitored to make sure that everything actually grows in scale.
What I was going to say to you, is the sector ready for that level of expansion? It's kind of a flippant question, because it will be ready, because it will have to be ready, but it's almost doubling, isn't it, effectively?
Yeah, and it comes back to my previous answer. I think the sector is ready for it. There is a demand for it. I mean, we've talked about Expo, we've talked about the World Cup in 2034. The events in Riyadh keep getting bigger and better. The sporting events, obviously, you've got the Live Golf. They're now getting involved in LTA, Lawn Tennis Association. You've got the football. So I think it's going to be a long time before we reach saturation point in terms of the hospitality requirements. It's just making sure that infrastructure grows up around it to stabilise the growth of that sector.
Yeah, it's easy to follow the logic, isn't it? Which cities offer the biggest growth opportunities for the hotel operators, I suppose, but also for the investors?
You've got to look at it on a case by case. So Riyadh, obviously, you've got a lot of events in there. You've got a lot of corporate. You've got a lot of business, and to a certain degree, leisure and entertainment. Popping down to Six Flags and Aqua Arabia, it's about 40 minutes outside of Riyadh. So for that particular demographic, then you're looking at Riyadh. Jeddah is more cultural, family orientated with business, and obviously it's a gateway into the Western Province. It's a gateway into Medina and Mecca for the religious tourism. And then you can't really offset Dammam. Dammam's a bit of an outlier.
I was going to ask you about Dammam because it's attracting a lot more attention. It seems.
Well, we recently did a piece on the growth of the residential section in Dammam, which has been quite significant. And what we're seeing is the hospitality is starting to keep pace. Again, it's seen as a commercial centre of the Eastern Province. It's a gateway into KSA. You've got the catchment area of Khobar. You've got Dhahran. You've obviously got Bahrain across the causeway as well. And again, it's not so much for business. It's more for family. It's more for leisure. It's more for cultural. And again, you've got that waterfront experience, which you don't necessarily have in Riyadh.
Yeah. Okay, so I know I can follow that logic as well. I am following you, I promise. So as a property consultancy, you guys, Cavendish Maxwell, you're right, kind of, you're in the thick of things in these kind of mega hospitality developments. So with so many of these mega or giga projects still under construction, how do you advise developers to differentiate their offerings so they don't end up competing in a saturated market a few years down the line? How do those conversations go?
It depends. I mean, some developers, they have a mindset. You know, they've decided, sometimes it can be like dealing with your wife, you know, you just kind of have to go along with it.
Know who's boss.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, they have a mindset in terms of what they want to do and what they want to achieve. Our role is to make sure that we guide them to come to the right decision. So through our strategy and consulting team, that's where we'd get involved at an early stage. So we'd look at the demand drivers for that area, we'd look at what's happening, we'd look at, you know, short-term, mid-term, long-term projections, and then we'd advise them from that perspective whether they should be putting a 4-star, a 5-star, number of keys, et cetera, location. Right. And the thing is, locations are limited as well. You know, particularly in the built-up areas like Riyadh. You know, there's a lot of the land is owned locally. They like to develop it locally, and that comes with a cost bracket as well. So sometimes when you start putting the deal together, you find that the cost of the land just makes the deal, it just doesn't work. So yeah, we get to a point where we agree commercially, we agree from a program perspective, and we provide them obviously with a solution. Whether they take that and decide to move ahead is entirely up to them. But it's just making sure they've got the best information that's available at the time to make the most informed decision.
Are we seeing a move towards more experiential hospitality? You know, things like remote luxury or ecotourism, because this is my impression. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, or is the more kind of traditional business travel hotel still the main focus at the present time?
It's a very good question. I would say remote tourism is becoming more popular. I wouldn't necessarily say it's ecotourism. Okay. So if you move across to the Alulas, some of the experience where they're using the natural caves and natural rock formations.
I mean, that's what's in my head, yeah.
And you know, there's more activity going on in the mountainous regions such as Trojena. You know, and that offers an escape from the city, an escape from the heat, cooler environs, and often snow in the winter, which, I mean, who would expect to experience snow in Saudi Arabia?
No, I mean, that's an incredibly attractive proposition, I think, for a lot of people, particularly, you know, regionally, but it's the who would have thought that? Yeah. Really ambitious targets set for 2030 in the kingdom and beyond. But if you had to identify maybe the biggest bottleneck to maintaining the growth, the trajectory of growth that we're seeing, is it finding experienced, you know, really skilled hospitality staff, or are there supply chain issues within the construction of these new assets?
I think looking at the bigger picture, it's going to be structural issues. You know, I think we've mentioned, you know, can everything that outlies to support hospitality and tourism, can it keep pace with the pace of development and the aspiration to reach this figure by 2030? The gigas, to an extent, have slowed down.
Sure.
You know, whereas before we were seeing issues with material shortages, labour shortages, and, you know, senior management consultants that could actually go in and do the work, that is no longer becoming a problem. There's more availability in that market. I think the biggest issue is from the hotel operators, maybe actually getting people that want to relocate to Saudi to operate these facilities. But I mean, that's a problem for 2 or 3 years down the line.
It's a problem for down the road, isn't it?
Yeah.
The World Cup on at the moment, of course, so we need to talk about it being in Saudi in 2034. But there's also Expo 2030 as well to think about, isn't there? So how transformative could those two events be?
Highly transformative, if we're being, in terms of demand, but more importantly in terms of market perception. Yeah. You know, can Saudi do it? There was a lot of questions around whether the UAE could make a successful Expo, and they did. It was fantastic. You know, when it happened, it was brilliant. Again, Qatar World Cup, you know, there's a lot of questions around whether that would work and whether that would be successful given the change in timings of when it was held. You know, you've almost got a double whammy in 4 years in terms of what's going on in KSA. So, you know, when this goes ahead, and it will go ahead, and it will be successful, it's going to have a huge structural impact across the whole of KSA and certainly the region. Aspirationally, KSA wants to be the global hub of tourism. Can it achieve that? It's certainly there in terms of the regional hub. When you start looking at the numbers and you look at the volume of international travel and you look at the volume of domestic travel and the spend per head. So again, then you've got to look at, and I keep saying look around the hospitality sector. So it will encourage longer term investment, investor sentiment in hotels, and then that will move to service departments. People think, well, actually, service departments might be an option over hotels. You can still own and operate as a going concern. And again, you've got the infrastructure that we've mentioned about as well. And then the wider picture is, where do you house all these people that are coming in to work in the hotels, that are working in the retail, that are working in the F&B that's actually required to support this growth? So it's certainly an interesting conundrum, and probably not one I can answer fully today.
No, I don't expect you to. Your opinion's the key. So if you're an investor and you're looking at the Saudi tourism story today, is there a metric or maybe a trend? We always ask about trends and metrics on this show, but is there something that maybe matters more than that headline spending figure?
At the moment, I don't think we've got enough data to kind of put a finger on that metric. Maybe come back on in 6 months and we'll have another conversation about this. Certainly the key drivers for hospitality at the moment are, as we said, religious tourism and business travel. That will continue, and it will continue to expand and grow. We've talked about the luxury experiences. Will there become a saturation point for that? We don't know until everything that's happening on the Red Sea opens up, and that starts to settle over a 12, 18-month period.
Okay, well, you've invited yourself back, so 6 months. I'll hold you to that, Kevin, as well.
That was inadvertent, Tim.
Get that in the diary now. Final question for you, and again, it's kind of asking you to ruminate, or it's not quite crystal ball. But if I was to ask you for an outlook for the hospitality market in Saudi Arabia over the next 12 months, if that was the question, how would you answer it?
Extremely positive, but increasingly nuanced. Religious tourism will continue to underpin performance in Makkah and Medina. You've then got, you've got further expansions into different areas in Medina. People are going to want these more experiences. Instead of just coming for a religious pilgrimage, they're going to extend that stay. They're going to look at things that they want to go and see and do, particularly around that Red Sea area. Riyadh will still benefit from business travel. You've got the events, you've got the ongoing investment. Obviously, you've got the big driver of PIF sat behind the scenes that is obviously funding all this. And domestic tourism will continue to be a key stabiliser, particularly during this period.
Pretty much covers it, I think. It's a new report out from Cavendish Maxwell, the property consultancy. Kevin Duffield is Regional Director for Built Asset Consulting with them. It's good to talk to you. Good to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Tim. Pleasure.
Appreciate it. Good to have you here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM, your daily